Verheft stiefel.
Ja. Inderdaad, ik zag het daarna. Oké.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom iedereen en
Oké.
tot volgende week.
Shalom. En dank u
Zou
wel.
daar Plancey nu binnenlaten?
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos iedereen.
Eventjes,
Dank u
waar
wel.
is die? Plancey. Spotlight for everybody. Ja. Rabbi Plancey, you're in.
I'm in.
Nou,
Rabbi Plancey, I want to wish you good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos to you too. Right, so tonight I want to start off with a Sedra and then talk to you a little bit about the 3 weeks which we should be looking at. The Sedra of Pinchas is a very interesting one because it started last week. You remember the end of the Sedra last week, after we find that Pinchas comes along with a spear and kills Cosby and he kills the other guy, and it stops there. Then all of a sudden today we were reading, now this week we're reading about Pinchas ben Oza ben Aaron Akoin and Shivas Kamosi. Why didn't they put it all together? Start off by telling us the story that the Midianites were trying to, you know how they were doing this, that they were trying to entice the Jewish people away from Yiddishkeit with intermarriage, which I'll come on to a little bit later in greater detail. And Pinchas decided that he couldn't take it anymore. He was what they call in English a zealot, a kanoi, somebody who just couldn't stand by and watch what was going on. He decided he had to take the law into his own hands, and he killed both of them with a spear right the way through them. That's how it ends the Sedra. Then this week, we find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu stops a revolution because they all wanted to assassinate him, and they give him, he gets his present, he gets his OBE or MBE, whatever you want to call it, his knighthood, and he gets a shalom, he gets peace, he becomes a kohen. Up till now, it was only those people who were born after Aaron became a kohen. He was born before, so now he's become a kohen. So the question is, why is it that the Torah is split up like this? Surely we should have it all together. I believe the answer is teaching each and every one of us a very important lesson. If you do something and you do it l'shem shamayim, then people will not start thinking, saying, oh, he did it so he could get the reward. You know, some people do this all the time. They say, I'll do this and I know what, I'll get an honor, I'll get this, I'll get paid for it. Pinchas wanted to make it very, very clear that under no circumstances did he want to have anything whatsoever to do with the reward. He did it because he was so upset by what was going on. And you will see that the death was greater than even the Egel Azov. So let's look a little bit about the Sedra, and then we will see what's happening. Let's start off first of all. We find here the immorality with the Midianite girls dressed as Moabites caused the death, believe it or not, of 24,000 men. That was in last week's Sedra. 24,000 men. And it was a terrible thing, this, because when Pinchas witnessed this act of immorality between the Jewish prince from Shimon and the Midianite princess, he killed them both and he stopped the plague. He stopped it. Instead of applauding him, the people criticized him and saying, how dare you? And they called him, this is a chutzpah, the grandson of an idol worshipper. You know who his grandfather was? Yisrael, on one side of the family. But on the other side, the Kadosh Baruch Hu put into the Torah, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen. He was the grandson of Aaron. He wasn't stamped from a non-Jewish people. He was a descendant, direct descendant of Aaron. What was Aaron's qualities? This is what we've got to understand. Aaron was Oyev Shalom and Roidev Shalom. Aaron was a person who pursued peace, who loved peace. So the opposite tells us that the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him the greatest reward he could have got. He awarded him with a covenant bris of Shalom. He gave him the covenant of peace. Apart from that, of course, he made him a Kohen as well. From that day on, he became a Kohen on. So let me understand what's going on here. Here we have Kadosh Baruch Hu protecting him. You know why people were upset? Because everybody who should have done it fell asleep. You know, sometimes you see something wrong. And if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. Because people say, it's not my business. Why should I get involved in it? This is what upset Pinchas as well. He said that the attack was to pervert, the whole attack by these Midianites was to pervert the youth of Klal Yisrael. And they were attempting this intermarriage. And they didn't do anything. And if you don't do anything, what happens is the end of Klal Yisrael. I must tell you, it's a very serious problem, this. So we have two kinds of people. And this is what we're introduced to this week. You have the sleepers and the talkers on the one hand, and the doers on the other hand. You know what it says in Pirkei Avos? Say little and do much. Emor le'at v'aseh harbe. Get on with it. Don't just stand and talk. Get up and actually show Klal Yisrael where they're going wrong. You know, there are people come into committees and they go back after the committee meeting is over. They sat there, they may have said a few words, and then they go back to sleep, they go home, forget all about it. And there are always the few people, it's a fact of life, who actually do the work. And this applies even to mitzvahs and to Klal Yisrael. And Pinchas couldn't stand this. He was not an executive. He was an executioner. And there's still, he was what we call in Hebrew, a kanoi. He couldn't stand what was going on. He had to break the peace in order to achieve peace at this time. And that, I must tell you, is a very important thing. But there's a question which is asked. Why didn't Moshe do it himself? Why didn't he come along? Why did Pinchas do it? After all, Moshe was also a zealot. He also didn't like what was going on. So why didn't Moshe do this, right? It's a good question, this. We've got to find an answer. Secondly, why did Pinchas, if it was such a wonderful thing that he did, and he stopped the plague and everything, so why did he suffer criticism from the general public? I want to tell you, and this is something I'm beginning to learn the hard way. People don't like when you quote something, even if it's in the Torah, that upsets them themselves. Now, I had this. I was called and accused because I quoted the Torah to Avohi by homosexuality was an abomination. And I said quite clearly, categorically, the people themselves are not condemned. It's the action that is condemned, because we're here to bring in the next generation. Do you know, because I quoted the Torah, that's all I did. I was accused of being homophobic. And they said to me, this is what was said. The Torah is now antiquated. We've got a New Testament now. This is what they're saying. And this is why you have to sometimes stand up and be a kanoia. You can't sit back and let it happen, you know. And I want to tell you, and I've said this to you, and I prove it to you. This year's coming up to Shemitah, right? You tell me any farmer that would listen to a balabos who says, don't work this year, let your field go fallow. They would say to you, you're completely insane. How can I do that to my field? But no, it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it. And that's why they said we've got to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there are unfortunately people today who are actually out to criticize. And why is it? Why was he criticized when he did a tremendous thing? So let's look a little bit and see this here. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you know this, by the way, I want to tell you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not give food to the poor. We are asked to do that. A bris milah. If we want a bris milah, why did the HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the boy already mauled, finished? What's going on here? And this is something as well. You know, if we want to help a poor person, why doesn't he give everybody money? Why is it left to us? And the answer is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do this, to be his shaliach. It's an interesting thing, this. We are the shaliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are his messengers. We are standing up and helping HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you do a bris, you're a shaliach for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we give poor people food, hachnosas orchim. It says, yes, he supplies all food, you know, he gives to everybody. So why do we have to? Because he wants us to be a partner in that mitzvah as well. It's not something which is publicized in the Torah. We want partnerships. No. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to use our own imagination. He says, if we feel like Pinchas and action be taken, we have a law that we have to stand up. How many times you see something and you walk away from it? It's not my business. You know, I tell you, they're very interesting. It's lovely. When I go shopping and the women are coming up with their baskets with the tray for meat and they're putting it underneath. And I always show them, I say to them, you know, the counter over there is kosher meat. It's just as good, it's just the same price. And you know, you mustn't be scared. They always give you an answer. It's not for me, it's for my neighbor's dog. You know, so you always have somebody giving a taina. But we have a chiyuv. We see something wrong, we have to stand up and say, it is wrong. And you can't just stand back and say, if they did it, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will punish them. That's not. I'm not asking to punish anybody, but to teach people. That's our business here, completely to do this sort of thing. So now we come on to what's going on here. The Chachomim come along and say the following. We've got a question: is why did Moshe Rabbeinu not kill this Midianite? Who was Moshe Rabbeinu's father? Yisro. How could he? Who gave him hospitality? Now, I've told you this before. Now, there's two words which we have to keep bashing home and home and home, and that's called hakoras hatov, appreciation. Throughout the whole Torah, we see the appreciation that Moshe Rabbeinu, you know, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't leave Yisro without going up and asking him permission to go. He said, you looked after me, you fed me, you gave me your daughter, you were wonderful. How can I just run away? He said, can I go? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him, but he got permission from Yisro to go. Hakoras hatov. What did he do? He said, you remember he couldn't do the plague of blood? Why couldn't he do the plague of blood? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved his life. Hakoras hatov. He couldn't hit the sand at the seashore because of to get the frogs or the lice, because it covered over, the sand covered over the guilt of killing the Egyptians. You remember? This is hakoras hatov. Moshe Rabbeinu was showing, it's a strange thing this, but it's true. He was showing his hakoras hatov, his appreciation to his father-in-law for having saved him, looked after him when he ran there and got married to Tzipporah. So here we find as well, since he was saved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he was saved by Yisro, we find as well then that Yisro, that he helped him, he could not kill the Midianite, a very interesting reason. And that's why Pinchas came along and showed this as well. He could do it because he wasn't, and he didn't have anything to say thank you from. You know, the Kohanim got certain animal parts of the animals. You got the foreleg, the jaw, the stomach. Why? Why did he get these parts? And I saw this. Unbelievable. Pinchas took the spear in his hand. So he gets the legs of the animal, the forelegs, like the hands. That was given to the Kohanim. If Pinchas prayed, he davened. Therefore, you get the mouth, the jaw, the Kohanim, the stomach, because he thrust a spear right the way through the stomach of Bo Cosby and Zimri. He wanted to show them, Klal Yisrael, they were doing immorality. It wasn't a case of just shooting them and killing them. No, he had to show everybody why he was doing it. So these gifts of the Kohanim, which are read and which you mentioned in the prayer of Koirach, it's one of the 24 gifts, but they're mentioned later in Shoftim. So nobody received such a great honor as Pinchas did. What was his honor? He got Malchut, he got a Kahana. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get it. Have you ever thought about this? Moshe Rabbeinu was always there to help Klal Yisrael. When did he help them? With the Egel HaZohov. When did he help them? With the Meraglim. But you know something? Pinchas did something that even Moshe didn't do. Pinchas finished the plague. Stopped. It was gone. Next day they were back to normal. Did Moshe finish with the Egel HaZohov? Kadosh Baruch Hu keeps reminding them, when you want to do something wrong, you want to forgive us, just remember, I forgave you that bit at the Egel HaZohov. But the Meraglim, Did Moshe Rabbeinu stop it? Oh no, for 40 years they were stuck in the wilderness. So you see, he didn't complete the task. Whereas Pinchas completed the task and he got his reward mamish on the spot. He didn't completely eradicate any of these sins. So we find now that therefore similarly, you got the spies, he didn't eradicate it, but Pinchas, he removed the complete plan of Bilam, which was to destroy the Klal Yisrael. We know this with Matovu, and I've said this to you, Matovu Olecho Yaakov. That was the Seder of Bolok. That was last week's Seder, right? Now, we didn't have a shear there, and I'm going to tell you something about this. Every curse that Bilam gave to the Jewish people, and I want you to remember this, please, and it's so important. Every curse turned to a brocha, but sadly, every brocha that's happened has turned now to a curse. It's become a reality, except one, and that brocha is Matovu Olecho Yaakov. What was that brocha? And what's happening today where we're seeing that brocha is now chas v'sholem becoming back to Bilam's curse? Do you know what he was saying? Not how good are your tents. He was not an architect. He didn't see inside. He wasn't interested in that. He was saying, as Rashi says, Mativu, how satisfied the Jewish people are. They don't even look into their neighbor to see what they've got. They're not interested in what they've got. They're happy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's given them, and therefore they accept what they've got. Bilam saw this. He couldn't believe it. He said, look at this. How happy, how satisfied they are. Let me give you another explanation, which is mine. Oihel is a tent, only for a family. You don't have a tent unless you've got a marquee. But an oihel is a tent, which is a small thing. And Yaakov refers to an individual person. Jacob, one man. Mishkan refers to the community, the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, the Shul. And Yisrael refers to Klal Yisrael. You understand where I'm coming from? This is my interpretation. And Bilam was saying something which unfortunately is being missed now. And you see it from this week's Seder as well. Only as good as the individual homes are, will the community be good. In other words, the sum of the parts equal the whole. Bilam was telling us, if you've got good homes, you'll have a gewaltige kehillah. Gewaltig. And that's why Pinchas came along. And he was angry. He saw what was going on here. They were destroying the Jewish people. What's happening today, tell me, in the world today? Do we not find exactly the same thing is happening? Where, unfortunately, it's Rahman al-Islam, with intermarriage being so high that once they get married out, the children are no longer Jewish. I'm talking about where men marry, like here, immediate immorality. And we've got to stop it. We've got to get it back on a proper even keel again. Because it's telling us we've got to understand that we are responsible for the salvation of Klal Yisrael. And that's what Pinchas felt he had to do. And you will find, by the way, later on you will find Horuveni, Hashimani. Every tribe became back to their names again. They got the letter Hey, the letter Yud, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the sons of their fathers, because of the courageous action and the status that Pinchas took, that it was impeccable. And that's why Pinchas received this wonderful accolade. He saved Klal Yisrael. He saved us from total and utter destruction. So Pinchas, he was not a man of compromise. And by the way, I've said this before, I don't believe in compromising. It's either yes or no. It's either kosher or treif. Where do we find this compromising lesson? Is by, you remember when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai with the Torah? What did he do? He took the two luchas, although according to the Medrash, the letters all went up back to Shemayim. It was only the stones, but he threw both of them. And he said, it's either the Torah or the Avodah Zorah. You can't have both. You can't walk around like some Shigoyim do with a Mogen David and a cross. It's other ein, other the other, one or the other. You can't have both. And this is the problem. Moshe also threw them in to say, you can't compromise and say, I keep Ben Odom L'Hamokam, but not Ben Odom L'Chavera, or the other way around. You either keep all or none. You can't turn around and have this compromise. Can you see what's going on here? The whole lesson of Pinchas, that simple lesson, he's coming to teach us. He couldn't stand this compromising. How many of us stand by and compromise? They're young, they'll learn, they'll get over it. But why should we look for excuses? And this is what it's all to us, particularly now during the 3 weeks when the Beis Hamikdash should have been back, and we're to blame for all of this. So here we have now, Pinchas is coming along, and he did this now. Now, we find as well that the Jewish people at that time started to complain. And the question is, how is it, what was it that Pinchas had done? He'd done such a great deed that other people were laughing at him and deriding him. They were wanting to kill him and stone him. I found something from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zichron Livrocha. He said, people had 3 complaints. How did such an insignificant man, who wasn't even a Kohen, take it upon himself to execute a prince? Surely this goes against the honor of Moshe Rabbeinu. Secondly, Pinchas was not without a blemish. Perhaps he inherited a cruel streak from his grandfather, who used to avoid the Zorah, killing animals for idol worship. And perhaps he was just looking for the limelight. That's these 3 questions he said. So he said as follows. He said that Pinchas, and the answer is, Pinchas was the grandson of Aaron, and that's why it's put down here today. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen. He was a grandson of Aaron. He had Aaron's midas, Aaron's qualities, and he had no evil streak. He was born with an eye of Shalom. Like his grandfather, he didn't seek publicity. Did Aaron seek publicity? Certainly not. He says, all he wanted, Aaron, was that he would, that who is Aaron that you, Koirach, revolt against him? He didn't open his mouth. He never said anything. So we find as well then that Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, he says, with this in action, he said, do you remember the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa? Do you remember the story of the wedding, and the Kamsa made a wedding? Bar Kamsa came, he hated him, and he wouldn't let him in. He even offered to pay him for the wedding and everything. And what did Kamsa do? He reported him to the authorities. That's because of that whole story. You have to look it up in the Gemara Gittin. It's an amazing story. We lost the second temple. So we see here that how important it is that we have to stand by. And this rabbi at the time then said nothing. He should have intervened. He should have interfered, and he should have allowed the man to Bar Kamsa to have been able to stay. So if we see somebody doing something for good, you don't jump to conclusions that he's a publicity seeker. If he's doing it the Shem Shemayim. And that's the problem. Everybody had different motives. Sometimes that you do something for the sake of heaven, but it will emerge that it was not for the sake of heaven, but nevertheless, it will eventually turn to be for the sake of heaven. Never ever prejudge or misjudge anybody. So can you see the lessons that we're learning from this week's Sedra? Number 1, if you see something wrong, you stand up for it. You don't sit back and do it. Number 2, you do it l'shem Shemai. You don't do it for the reward. The Kodesh Baruch Hu will give you your reward, and you'll get everything there. That is the first half. That's the Sedra of Pinchas. You'll be able to follow it this week much easier now and know that he was a tzaddik. He was granted the shalom. And you know something? What's the greatest gift you can give to somebody? The greatest gift is shalom. You know what the Mishnah says? Shalom is a basket. And into that basket goes all the other brachas. If you haven't got shalom, no matter what goes in, it's useless. You know something? I know it may sound a crazy thing to say. I have never seen anybody yet who's won a lottery who's found happiness. Because they know something, money will destroy as well. They think, oh, we've got to be wealthy, blah, blah, blah. We've got to understand. We've got to be able to live not just with other people. We've got to live with ourselves in shalom, in a peaceful coexistence. And I keep telling you, look in the mirror. What does it say? V'yohavta l'reacha kamoicha. What's the command there? It's not just v'yohavta l'reacha, love your neighbor, but kamoicha. You've got to love yourself. You've got to be able to live with yourself, to live with peace, with shalom. And that's the bracha, Sholem al Yisrael. Peace on Klal Yisrael. You know, it's very interesting. They say it's the biggest joke in the whole of Davening as well. Talmidei Chachomim marbim Sholem ba'olam. They say that Talmidei Chacham brings Sholem into the world. And you know, it's the Ezer Machloikas Sheloi L'Shem Shemayim was Koyrach and all his congregation, because Moshe didn't get involved. He lived at peace with himself. And Hillel and Shammai were good friends. And that was a Machloikas, which is Shemayim, because his students were always fighting with each other. They were standing up. I don't know whether you watched it, you didn't watch it, I haven't got time for it. England won the football 2-0 to Germany. I'm gewalt, gefährlich. Beatles, you know, I looked up the dictionary in the Encyclopedia Judaica, and I looked up Kado Regel, which is football, and it says there, Beatles, man, a waste of time. That's exactly what it said in the Encyclopedia Judaica. But you see something, these people are dangerous. I remember I was brought up in Glasgow, and there were two football teams, Rangers and Celtic. And if they ever had a football match, they would throw bottles at each other and fight with each other, because this was a canoe, this was a zealot for their team. It wasn't L'Shem Shemayim, they just wanted to win their team to win. But the footballers were playing L'Shem Shemayim, same as Shammai and Hillel. They played, they'd learned and studied, and they gave a halacha L'Shem Shemayim. The students took it in a different way. My rabbi said, and therefore he's right. And you know, they don't stop and think, and they go on about this. So we learn this as well, not to be a zealot, but to be very careful, be able to live in Sholem, to do things L'Shem Shemayim, and not to look for any reward. The rewards will come in the world to come. Now we're going to move forward. Everybody's talking at the moment. You all know we're in the 3 weeks. The Sholosh Regal. There's 3 weeks here. It's Gimel. It's called in Hebrew Gimel de Porenuso. The 3 weeks of trouble, of punishment, from Shivasa Tammuz till Tisha B'Av. And if you can put something off, which is a court case or something, we try not to do it, because it's not a good semen for us this particular time. So that's number one. So let's look a little bit about it. I found a sefer, and it was written by Reb Chaim of Volozhin. Now I'll explain to you who he is. He was born in January 21st, 1749, and he died on June the 14th, 1821, which is what, 80 years, just under 70 something years. So he lived there. He was a very frum Orthodox rabbi, Talmudist, and ethicist. He was known as Reb Chaim Volozhiner, simply Reb Chaim, and he died while he was under the control of the Russian Empire, which is today, you've probably read about all this in Belarus, where they kidnapped somebody, took a plane. You remember the plane was diverted. I've been to Belarus, and I can tell you, the gefährliche Genevas. Now, Reb Chaim wrote a sefer, and I've got this sefer, and I want to learn it with you tonight. And it's so beautiful, because it will change your whole attitude towards the 3 weeks. There is in the Gemara Tainis, okay? Simchu es Yerushalayim, those people who rejoice on Yerushalayim, Sisu Oisor, they will rejoice, B'sois Kol HaMisablim Oleh. All those who mourn for it will rejoice with its rebuilt. So it comes in the Gemara, says, Bikan Omru, from here it states, Kol HaMisabel al Yerushalayim, anybody who mourns for Jerusalem. Now it uses a present tense now. Zoiche v'royeh. He is meriting and he is seeing the simcha of Yerushalayim. You hear that, of the rebuild? We're not seeing anything, are we? So what's it telling us? He should have said, he will merit and he will see simchosa, its joy, beloshin osid, in the future tense. This is he's asking on the Gemara. It's a up to date. It's what you call it, present tense. Hameis nishkach min alev. Now I'm going to tell you something here. This is something which we translate. Anybody who has got betochen has got no questions. Anybody who's got no betochen, no faith, has got no answers. All right? When we lose Chalila, we lose somebody whom we love. It says as follows. Al hachai, something which is alive, shesvayin shehu mesa, we believe may be dead, ein mekablin tanchumin. We never get any comfort. Why? Because as long as we think he's alive, we'll never ever be comforted. People will tell you, we find this, by the way, with Yaakov Avinu. Do you remember? When Joseph was taken, nothing could comfort him. Why not? Because deep down he knew by Nevi'us, whatever it was, that Yosef was still alive. How can you comfort him? However, he says, he goes, Rashi says, Al Apostle, he says, he couldn't be comforted. Here we go here. Ulefizeh, Hamizabel al Yerushalayim. Anybody who mourns for Jerusalem, Muchach Mizeh, we are proving to Yerushalayim Eina Mesa, that Jerusalem is not gone. Now let's understand this. If you will say that Yerushalayim is gone, you would never be able to mourn for it. The Aldova, it says Mesa, Nigza, Shetischach min alev. You know, it's a very interesting thing, this. I'm going to translate it very seriously into English, but in a different way altogether. It says as follows. You don't cry over spilt milk. Correct? If you can't get it back, what's the point of crying for it? Now, I'll tell you the story of this. We broke a crystal glass. It broke. My kids broke. I don't know. My wife said, don't lose your temper. It's only a piece of glass. It's gone. Finished. It's smashed. But then I saw another glass, exactly the same. Oh boy, did I want to get that glass. I wasn't mourning for the glass that was broken. I was trying to get the new glass which could replace it. You got my story so far? Now let's look and see here. It says in the Gemara, it says here, we don't do it. Something which is alive and you thought it was dead. You know, if you know it's going, you'll get no comfort from it. So therefore he mourns. And that's what the Gemara has come to tell us. What's he saying here? That Jerusalem is not dead. Let me see this explained to you. If it was dead, Chalila, the nature would be, it would have to be forgotten, finished. But what are we crying for? We're crying for something which was promised to us. The first temple, can we get it back? It's gone. The second temple, can we get it back? It's gone. So what are we crying for? The third temple. It's there. How do I know it's there? And we're stopping it. We daven Shemona Esrei tonight. Bonei Barachamov Yerushalayim. Amen. He is rebuilding at the moment Yerushalayim. It's almost like these builders, 3 bricks on and 2 bricks off. By the time we're finished, we'll get there in the end. Yeah, every time you do a mitzvah, you put a couple of bricks. Every time Chulil and Avera, they get knocked off again. So what are we mourning for? I remember going to Yerushalayim, and I went there Tisha B'Av. Oh boy, was that an experience. I went to the shul in Yerushalayim. It's not the big shul, it was the one next to it. And they put all the lights out. Everything went out. And some Rav went onto the Orna Kodesh. Oi, did I shake. Rabbi Sai said, you're all guilty. You're all guilty of destruction. You're all guilty of stopping the Beis HaMikdash being built. You're all guilty of not bringing the Mashiach back. Do you know how I felt when I walked out there? I felt the whole world had fallen onto me. He was right. That's what we're davening for. That's why we're mourning. We're not mourning Eicha Yoshva Vodod. Why is it still the land of Yerushalayim still lying void and unbuilt? Because we've stopped building it. That's what Chaim was telling us. Cry for the third Beis Hamikdash. Cry for a purpose, because you can't cry for that which is gone. And that's why, by the way, with Avelis is 3 days of serious mourning, the first 3 days. The next few days of Shiva is not so bad, then the Shloshim, and then comes the year. Now you'll notice it's a diminishing of numbers. And I've said to people, if you could bring them back, you cry. If you can't bring them back, why are you crying? Think of what he left. You know what you're crying for? That you're not able to emulate the example that he left that you to follow. If you could follow that example and you know what he left behind, you wouldn't cry. I see my grandchildren, and I know that I said to my wife, I said, our parents must be looking down. They must be so happy in seeing what has been built from these 4 people. It's amazing that from 4 people, there's 2 couples. We had 2 couples get together. We were 2 of us. Our children married. Look at this. I mean, B'li Ein Hara. And it's the future. We're looking to the future. We can't turn the clock back. So here we're saying that's the first lesson I want to tell you. Now we're going on to another lesson. There is in the Haftorah of Tisha B'Av, yes, it goes as follows. The Novi, the prophet, asks the question. It's a Gemara in Baba Metzia. Goes as follows, and you'll love this. Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rav, says, Mai dichsiv, why is the verse written? Mi ho'ish hechachom. Who is this wise man? V'yovin ezos, and he understands everything. V'asher diber pi Hashem elov, and he comes, he says, the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to him. V'yagido, and he comes along and he asks, this man, who's this, the prophet? Alma of the Haaretz. Why did we lose the land? Why did we lose Eretz Yisrael? Why did we lose the Beis Hamikdash? Okay, I'm going to ask you now. Do you know the reason why we lost the Beis Hamikdash? I can give you one reason for second Beis Hamikdash. Sinas Chinam, right? What did the prophet say to us? Avoid Gilu Aroyas, avoid the Zorah, Shvichas Domim. The 3 cardinal sins were being committed by the Jewish people. Immorality, Gilu Aroyas, murder, Shvichas Domim, avoid the Zorah, idol worship. And you come along and you task me, why? Where's it go? And you ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says as follows, Omru Chachomim, says the Novi. They asked the prophets. V'lo Pirshu, they couldn't answer them. They had no answer to give him as to why we lost Eretz Yisrael. Well, that's what it seems like. Omru Nevi'im, so he went to the prophets. V'lo Pirshu, and he couldn't answer them. I don't know. Ad Shepirshu HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzma. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down himself and he said, Shenema, Vayomer Hashem. Hashem said, Al ozvom es torosi asher nosati lifnehem. They have neglected my Torah which I placed before them. Now the problem is here. Mi hoyes ashayla al mavdos. What is this question? That question was stupid because they knew why we lost the temple. Gilu Aroya, Shvichas Domim, Avodah Zarah, we have Lashon Hara, Motzi Shem. Well, what's he asking? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got to be asked, and he's got to tell us. Al Ozva es Toirosi that he says it. So you know what he said? They asked the Chachomim and he asked the Nevi'im, the prophets, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us. So he says as follows. The shaila is not lo hoyaso al ezu avera of the haaretz. Not what was the sin that the Jewish people caused us to lose all the temple and everything. Lo tzori shaila. There is no question. We know the answer to that. Hashaila hoyaso asiba harishis. Why he says is mod Hashem? He says he goes as follows. Halam mitchila. At the very beginning, when they came to Eretz Yisrael, when they first went into the land of Israel, how did they behave? Wonderfully. Torah, Avodah, everything was unbelievable. It was magnificent. And Yahushua brings it down. Vayavoid Yisrael es Hashem kol mimei Yoshua v'chol yimei hazakenim. But then he comes along. If they did that, so then what caused all the first underlying current that caused everything to happen? They couldn't answer. They didn't know until HaKadosh Baruch Hu came along and said, do you know why they did all these sins? Do you know why people sin? Because Ke'ozves Torosi. They've neglected learning Torah. They don't know. Why do you think people are Mechalel Shabbos? Because they don't know. And the Ozves Torosi, they've neglected the Torah. Why do you think there's so many machlokas at the moment about what's going on with this so-called modern Orthodox? Ki Ozves Torosi, they've neglected and lost it, have left the Torah. You hear what I'm saying here? That's all the answer, Omer Rabbi Rav. The reason why we're sitting now 3 weeks of mourning, the reason why we've got a Tisha B'Av is because we're not sitting and learning. Yes, learning's coming back, but the majority of people are not learning Torah anymore. That's one answer. Rabbi Yehuda gives another answer, and this answer is a bit difficult. His answer, he says, is Shelo Berach B'Torah Techila. They didn't make a bracha when the beginning of Torah. Do you know every morning you make a bracha? Asher Kiddushonu V'Sasov V'Sivonu La'asoik B'Divrei Torah. What does it mean, La'asoik B'Divrei Torah? And I interpret as follows. Business transactions are not B'Divrei Torah. Too much geneva, too much, they say even with the scales, make sure your scales are weighted properly. And never, you can see what's happening today. Today, we've got to know the underlying. He said, it's all very well. He said, people, and this is something which I've emphasized over and over again. It's no good putting your talus over your face and say, I love God and I'm davening and I'm doing. And then you go back to your shop and you underweigh people, or you charge them interest, or you do something which you shouldn't be doing. Because Bein Odom, that's why I said to you at the beginning, when Moshe Rabbeinu took the luchos and he threw them into the Egel Azov, he threw it straight in. And he threw it straight because he wanted to show you can't make a differential between your relationship with your fellow man and with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's both exactly the same. You've got to be able to do all that, but all together. So you can see that it's an amazing thing, this, how the Torah is coming to teach us simple things. We're sitting, if you ask somebody, ask children, why we got this? Oh, we lost the temples. That's not the reason. The true reason is because we've not got the third temple and we've prevented it. If I were to ask you, why do we fast on the day before Purim and we call it Tainis Esther? Everybody will tell you, oh, Esther fasted for 3 days. But the Chachamim never made something you couldn't keep. When did she fast? Certainly wasn't Erev Purim. You know when she fasted? She fasted on Pesach. So what do we have this fast? And the answer is as follows. Whenever the Jewish people went out to war, they fasted. The Goyish world says, eat and drink and be merry, because tomorrow you're going to die at the army. But as it's the exact opposite. We turn around and say, you fast, because tomorrow HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be on our side. And it's called Tainis Esther, purely and simply, B'schus Esther, that she caused all the miracle to come. But the reason for fasting is because of the Bechemes Amalek. We've got to get the facts correct now. And this is something which Chaim Volozhin wants us to understand. We've lost the third Beis HaMikdash. It's still there. We haven't lost it. And that's why we can cry for it. Because it's something which is absolutely in our hands. And you can't grasp it, then you can feel guilty. You've got to wait and be able to do this thing. And that's why, it builds up, because you've got an opportunity of saying to yourself, for the first few weeks, we can still eat meat and drink wine, but we have our restrictions. Then we come to the week, Shechal B'Av Tisha B'Av, and then we've got Tisha B'Av itself. It's coming to emphasize to us, stop and think, do we have Avas Yisrael? Do we love everybody? I found the Sefer. It was by the Diane Swift, and it's so beautiful. And I'm going to tell you something which is actually very, very interesting as well. And this is to do with what's going on today in the world And people are not honest with themselves. You know, we had an Egel Azov, a golden calf. And I haven't taught you this because I didn't do that with you. The golden calf, what was the teshuvah, the repentance for the golden calf? It was the Mishkan. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, let them build a Mishkan, and that will be justification for me forgiving them for having built the Egel Azov. What's the connection? When Moshe spoke with Aaron, he said, what did you do? You built an Egel Azov, a golden calf. He said, I did that. I said, I took a piece of gold, I threw it into the fire, and out came the golden calf. He said, that's funny. He says, I took a piece of gold, I threw it into the fire, and what came out? A menorah. He said, so what are you going on here? He said, but the people were complaining, and we listened to them because you hadn't come back, and we wanted you back again. We need an emissary in between you. So Moshe turned around and it says, read the Sedra. When it built the Mishkan, what does it say? By every single item. Vayas Moshe kaser siva Hashem Elokim. Moshe did absolutely everything as HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him. Whether it was a Mizbeach, whether it was a Shulchan, whether it was the Orah, no matter what it was, he did not change one iota of building the Mishkan. And that's where it comes in. Moshe Rabbeinu said, you listened and you changed everything. I listened and I didn't change anything. And this is what the problem is. You listen and you change, becomes an Egel Azohov. You listen and you don't change and you stick to the Torah. Vayas kasher tziva Hashem. This is what's happening today. And I said this, and I'm not ashamed to have said it. The pandemic has caused us to come along and say, well, people are coming into, I won't say which part of the community, use Zoom. You can daven from Zoom on a Friday night. You can hear the Megillah from Zoom. Somebody phoned me up and told my wife, oh, Miriam, she said, it was the best Seder we've ever had. I said, well, she said, what was so special? She said, the whole family were there from America, from Australia. She said, we had it on Zoom and we sat there. I said, but that's not right. That's not Yom Tov. That's Vayas. That's Mamish the Egel Azov. That's considered like that. Vayas kasher tziva Hashem. We have matzahs and brodim yachlu. We sit at the table. We ask the questions. Don't change it. So this is a message, I think, as well, that whenever you can see something that's wrong, like Pinchas, correct it. And if you think you can, the people will tell you what to do. Don't listen. Keep to the Torah. Keep going to the Torah. That's what Moshe did. Again, another lesson of Hakoras HaToiv this week to show our appreciation. Even from inanimate objects, like Kodesh Baruch Hu said, show your appreciation to the water, the Nile, to the sand. It's an amazing thing, this, and we take everything for granted. We should show HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whenever we got food on our table. Do you know what that means? The Hakoras HaToiv we should say that Hazon Es Olam Kula B'Tuva. We know there are people who haven't got, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to take the leadership and make sure. That's why I want to tell you, with the Yidden this time, we've had, I don't know whether you've had in Holland, but we've had appeals, and the tzedakah that's been given by Klal Yisrael has been absolutely unreal, never been matched before. And I'm not talking about a few pounds, I'm talking about millions of pounds. I belonged at one time to an organization which was, Charities Aid Foundation, CAB. And the question they asked me is, how come that the Jewish people give so much, 20 times more than the normal community? I said, because this is done because we have a commandment and a responsibility, because we understand the command is to understand that the money doesn't belong to us. It's on loan. And if it's on loan, we've got to know how the boss wants us to use it. And who's lent it to us? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what do? We have to ask him how we use it. Your body is on loan. We have to learn how to use it. And that's so important. We have talis, tefillin. Why? Because that will prevent us from tzoras on our bodies, tzoras on our clothes, from shatness and tzitzis. We've got a mezuzah. That'll be tzoras from our home. Because Baruch Hu's putting in all the equipment for us. We've now got to come back to him and say to him, be like Pinchas, be a zealot, and we'll get and all we want to do is to get the bracha of Shalom. And that's the bracha I give you. And I was going to say to you, Diane Swift said the following. He said, there's a song which says, Am Yisrael Chai. You all sing it, yeah? He said, it's the biggest mistake you ever make. He says, Am Yisrael are not living. Am B'nai Yisrael Chai. He said, it's the children of Israel are keeping Klal Yisrael alive. Am Yisrael is a big people. Nice, a big people. But Am B'nai Yisrael. And if you look in the Torah, you will see that the only people who had bonim and told us were Klal Yisrael. All the rest of them just had children, generations. Eile told us Yishmael. Eile told us Esav. Eile told us. These are the future. That's their generations. But with us, Eile B'nai, these are our children. I'm telling you, there's a big difference between having children and just having another generation coming on. So my bracha is, we're now on to the second week now. And I'll be going away. I'm back. I hope next week I'll be with you, because the following week, believe it or not, I'm going to Manchester to fulfill a promise I made to them. Next Thursday night is the 8th. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you next week. B'shara tova b'tzlachas. And we will look over and see some more chidushim from the Torah, because we're coming now to Massas and Masseh, and Pinchas, Matas and Masseh. We're coming to the conclusion of another Sefer. Time is just flying so fast, it's scary. Make sure we utilize the time to its full. Just remember, there are 24 hours to a day. There are 12, there are in every minute. How am I going? I'm lost now. 60 minutes to every hour, 60 seconds to every minute. Make sure. The only person I ever read about was the Chofetz Chaim, when he would sit down in Erev Rosh Hashanah and he could calculate to the second how much time he wasted in not learning Torah. I wonder how we manage that one. If we could actually keep a cheshbon. I tell you, I need a calculator. But in that, so let's hope in Mitzvah Hashem. But together, as a kehillah, as families, that we're able in Mitzvah Hashem to be able to bring about the Mashiach. And I hope that next week we won't have to meet. The next week we'll be in Yerushalayim, Happy New Year. And if I see you, I'll wave to you. And if I don't get there, phone me a rope.
You can speak from Yerushalayim.
I'll speak from Yerushalayim. Have a lovely, lovely Shabbos and enjoy it. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Look after yourself and be careful. Just be careful, okay?
Okay. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.